Okay, Assalamualaikum and hi. In this video, we will be learning about the water for SB015 Biology 1 for matriculation syllabus. Okay, so in this video, at the end of the lesson, the student should be able to explain the structure of the water molecule, and second one, you should be able to describe the properties of water and its importance. Okay, let's begin with the structure of the water molecule. A water molecule that consists of an oxygen atom and two hydrogen atoms. So meaning that there are three different atoms bonded together in the water molecule, namely one oxygen and then two hydrogen. Okay, so these three different atoms of oxygen and hydrogen, they are joined together by one particular bond which we call as the polar covalent bond, right? And this polar covalent bond can be found between the two hydrogen atoms which are bonded together with the oxygen. Okay, for the water molecule, it has no net charge, but it will show what we call as the polarity. Okay, so polar molecule is where the opposite ends of the molecules will have opposite charges. Okay, and then a molecule carrying such an unequal distribution of electrical charge is what we call as a polar molecule, right? Since they do not distribute their electrical charge equally, so they are named as the polar molecule. So this is the case of the water, where the water will have a part of the molecule which is slightly positive, or we can represent them using this symbol, which we call as dipole positive, and the other is slightly negative. Okay, we can represent them using the delta negative. So this is known as the dipole, right? The polarity of water molecule, it attracts other polar molecule. For example, if that particular substance is a hydrophilic substance, for example, the sugar or salt, okay, meaning that they are loving the water. Okay, but for the water, it also repels the non-polar molecules, for example, the hydrophobic substances, such as the oil, right? For example, if you mix the sugar or salt with the water, the sugar or salts will be able to dissolve within the water. Alright, so that is what we call as the hydrophilic substances, okay, because it attracts by the water molecule. Okay, but if you put in the oil, which is a non-polar molecule, together with the water, the oil and also the water will not be able to mix with each other. Okay, because the oil is a non-polar molecule, the water is a polar molecule, so they are not able to mix with each other. Let's see the bonding between the water molecules. Okay, so we have in this diagram, we have two molecules of water. Okay, so the slightly positive hydrogen atoms of one water molecule will be attracted to the slightly negative oxygen atoms of the nearby water molecule. So you can see here the oxygen, they will have delta negative, and for the hydrogen here, they will have delta positive. All right, so we have these two water molecules are attracted with one another at their dipole. Okay, so the oxygen will have dipole negative, which will be attracted with the delta positive at the hydrogen atom of another water molecule. All right, and then they will form one particular bond, which we call as the hydrogen bond. All right, so the hydrogen bond will be forming between these two water molecules. Okay, the hydrogen bonds, they are much weaker in comparison with the polar covalent bond. Okay, but they are strong enough to hold the water molecules together. Okay, so the polar covalent bond, if you still remember, this is the bond between the hydrogen atom with the oxygen of the similar water molecule. Okay, but if we refer to the hydrogen bond, okay, the hydrogen bond are bonding the different water molecules together. Okay, so we have two types of bond that are present within the water molecule. We have the polar covalent bond within the water molecule and the hydrogen bond between the water molecules. Okay, the three atoms, okay, of the oxygen and hydrogen, they will form a V shape, okay, not a straight line. Okay, so this occurrence is due to the oxygen being more electronegative compared to the hydrogen. Okay, so the oxygen, they are much more electronegative compared to the hydrogen, which causing the unequal distribution of charge. Okay, so this will result in two covalent bonds spread apart at an angle of 104.5 degree. Okay, so they will not be present as a straight line, but the water molecule will be present as a V shape. Okay, let's see why a water molecule can bind with another four water molecules. Okay, since a water molecule, they have an oxygen with two delta negative, meaning that this one particular oxygen will be able to attract two water molecule, the other two water molecule. Okay, and for the hydrogen is able to bind together with another water molecule by hydrogen bonds. Okay, since they have two hydrogen atoms within a water molecule, so in total we will have four water molecule binding to this one particular water molecules. Okay, now we will be learning about the properties of water and its importance. Okay, so there are 6 different properties of water that you need to learn, starting with the water as a universal solvent. The water has low viscosity, water has high specific heat capacity, water has high latent heat of vaporization, water has high surface tension, and water has maximum density at 4 degrees Celsius. Okay, let's start with the first property of water, which is the water as a universal solvent. Okay, when we talk about the solvent, it is referring to the dissolving agent of a solution, and this water is a very fine solvent actually. All right, so water is a universal solvent for the polar molecules. For example, we have the sugar and salt. All right, so the ions or the salt and the sugar, they are easily dissolved in water. Okay, let's see one question. When you pour some table salt, the sodium chloride, into a cup of water, what really happens? Okay, so they will be producing what we call as the hydration shell. Okay, so we have here the sodium, which is positively charged, and the chloride ion, which is negatively charged ions. Okay, so the negative oxygen regions of polar water molecules are attracted to the sodium cations because the sodium is positively charged. So the oxygen region of the water will be attracted to this sodium, which is a cation, a positive ion. Okay, meanwhile, for the positive hydrogen regions of the water, okay, the dipole positive of the hydrogen in the water molecule, they are attracted to the chloride anions because this chloride is negatively charged. Okay, it is an anion, okay, Cl minus. So the one that are attracted to the Cl minus would be the positively dipole positive of the hydrogen in the water. Okay, so this particular layer of the water molecule, okay, surrounding the sodium and also the chloride ions, is what we call as the hydration shell. Okay, so the salt, the answer for the question just now is the salt crystals separate into sodium ion and also the chloride ion. But why? So remember the polarity of the water concept. So each sodium ion, the Na plus, will attract the negative end of the oxygen in water molecule, or the dipole positive of the oxygen in the water molecule. Okay, at the same time, the chloride ion, the Cl minus, attracts the positive end of the hydrogen ion, or the dipole positive of the hydrogen in the water molecule. Okay, so the water molecule will be surrounding the individual sodium and also the chloride ion, separating and shielding them from one another. So this is what we call as the hydration shell. Okay, so the sodium chloride, NaCl, is dissolved after water molecules cluster around its ions or the molecules and keep them dispersed in the fluid. Okay, hence dissolving this NaCl minus. Okay, as water has this unique property, it can also facilitate the chemical reaction both outside and within our body. Okay, for example, the water acts as a transport medium as in the blood. Okay, and also the biological chemical reactions take place in water. Okay, let's move on with the second characteristic of the water, which is the water has low viscosity. Okay, water has a low viscosity, so therefore it can flow freely with less friction. Okay, it also can act as a lubricant. So since they can reduce the friction, so the property will enable the water to move in or moving out of cell rapidly, or the water can help in the movement of the food substances. If you still remember the process of the peristalsis, okay? So lubricating fluids, which are mostly water, are for example, we have the saliva, the synovial fluid, or the amniotic fluid. Okay, for the living organism, the water can be used as a lubricant to minimize the friction. Okay, for example, in our limbs, for example, at the knees, okay, we have the bones meet at the joints. Okay, so the lubricant must be provided. So in this case, we have one particular lubricant which we call as the synovial fluid. Okay, so this is a thick liquid that is encapsulated within the joint. Okay, so the synovial fluid here enable our bones to easily move by reducing the amount of friction between these bones. And the third property is water has high specific heat capacity. Okay, the definition for this high specific heat capacity is referring to the amount of heat that must be absorbed or lost to raise the temperature of 1 gram of water, okay, by 1 degree Celsius per calorie, or 1 calorie per gram per degree Celsius. Okay, so the water, they have a high specific heat capacity. This means that a large amount of heat needed to cause the slight increase in the temperature. Okay, and the water temperature does not increase as fast as the other substances. Okay, by having this high specific heat capacity, okay, so this property of water enabling the water temperature in our cells to remain relatively constant. Okay, so this is very important because the water can act as a very effective temperature buffer for sudden temperature changes in cell. Okay, for example, you have fever. Okay, it is very important for our body to maintain their body temperature in order for the enzyme to continuously to function. Okay, and the second one, the high specific heat capacity of water here allows the ocean to maintain at the relatively constant temperature, thus creating the favorable environment for the marine organism to live. Okay, so since the water have high specific heat capacity, the constant body temperature enable the enzymes to function optimally and prevent denaturation of the biological molecules. Okay, in specific, we are talking about the enzymes here. Okay, for the fourth properties of the water, okay, the water has high latent heat of vaporization, which can be defined as the latent heat of vaporization refers to a quantity of heat which must be absorbed for the 1 gram of water to vaporize liquid to gas. So in this characteristic, we are looking into the changing of the states of matter of water, okay, from the liquid to the gas. Okay, large amount of the heat or energy must be used to break the hydrogen bonds between the water molecules, okay, in order for them to change their states of matter from liquid to gas. Okay, try to think about it. What happens when a person's body temperature begins to rise? Okay, when a person's body temperature begins to rise, the first thing that will happen is we will be sweating. Okay, and this film of water will cover the body. Okay, and the heat energy from inside of our body will be transferred from our skin to the water film. Okay, as the water has a high latent heat of vaporization, a great loss of the heat can occur without much loss of water to our body. However, how do animals that do not sweat prevent their bodies from overheating during hot days? For example, the elephant in this diagram. Okay, so what they do in order for them to reduce their body temperature is by bathing or wet themselves within the water. Okay, now another question. Try to put sewing needle on the surface of the water in a glass. But why does this needle float? So the fifth properties of the water has high surface tension. Okay, the polarity of water causes it to be attracted to other polar molecule. Okay, and the water molecule will then form the hydrogen bonds with other water molecule when it is attracted. Okay, so when the water molecule they are attracted with another water molecule. So this particular attraction, we refer it as cohesion. Okay, meanwhile, if the water molecule it is being attracted with other different substances, okay, so this particular attraction we will refer it as adhesion. So there are two particular terms that you need to emphasize for the high surface tension here. The first one is the cohesion, water with water, or the adhesion, which is the water with other different substances. Okay, so the cohesion between the water molecules are also responsible for its surface tension. Okay, so the water has higher surface tension than any other liquid. Okay, allowing. Okay, in the body of the water molecule within, okay, within this water droplet, are attracted equally by cohesion, and this cohesive force will only form the interior. Okay, so since we have the air-water interface here, the cohesive force will then form the interior, and the unequal attraction will cause the inwardly forces that cause the high surface tension at the surface of the water. Alright, so this is what happening, for example, at the surface of the ponds. Okay, you can see here, for example, in this diagram, we have the water scatter. Okay, since the water has high surface tension, it allows many small organisms to rely on the surface tension to settle on water. Okay, they are able to move on the surface of the water. Okay, for example, we have the water scatter and also the mosquito. Okay, another importance of this cohesion and adhesion under the properties of high surface tension of the water is the cohesion of the water will help in the transport of water through the xylem in plants. Okay, for example, the water will be absorbed starting from the root, and then they will be moving towards the leaf, okay, which is against the gravity. All right, so the cohesion, okay, the water will then attracting another water molecules to move from the root towards the leaf. Okay, and for the addition of water, okay, the water will be sticking on the cell walls of the xylem cell. Okay, because the water, for the adhesion, the water will be attracted with another different substance. So in this case, the water is attracted to the cell wall of the xylem cells, which help them to counter the downward pull of the gravity. Okay, another question for the last property of the water. Okay, try to think about it. How do aquatic organisms in ponds and also lakes can survive in liquid water during the winter months? Okay, for the last property of water, the sixth property of the water, okay, it has maximum density at 4 degrees Celsius. Okay, so the water achieve its highest density at 4 degrees Celsius. Anything below the 4 degrees Celsius, the water will then change the states of matter from the liquid water into solid ice. Okay, so therefore, the ice usually at 0 degrees Celsius will be less dense than the liquid water and floats on top of the water here. Okay, so the water is the only substance whose solid form is less dense than its liquid form. Alright, so the solid form here is actually referring to the ice. And this unique property of water allows the life to exist during the winter. For example, the countries with 4 different seasons. Okay, when they have the winter, the maximum density of water at 4 degrees Celsius is very important because the water freezes on top of the surface of the lake first, but it insulates the layer below from further cooling and freezing, okay, especially during the winter season. Okay, so this allows the life forms, the marine organism, for example, to thrive in the water beneath the ice, okay, during the winter season. Okay, so in conclusion, we can put together 6 different properties of water, starting with the water as a universal solvent. The water has low viscosity, the water has high specific heat capacity, water has high latent heat of vaporization, water has high surface tension, and last one, the water has maximum density at 4 degrees Celsius. With that, thank you very much for listening.